All right, we're the Dakota Polars, and we are a football franchise. We're going to be joining the NFL, and we'll be located in Fargo, North Dakota. A little current environment of the NFL and football in general. We really have no pro teams in the area. The closest one would be the Minnesota Vikings in St. Paul, Minneapolis, which is at least 5 hours away. But there is a huge fan base for football here that's visible throughout all the universities. UND, NDSU, SDSU are all huge football universities, and even high school football is huge here on the weekends. Another key factor is the Vikings have been down in past years, and their fans really aren't as attached to the team as some other franchises, like say the Packers or the Patriots, some of the more well-known franchises. And we think that the central location of Fargo is going to be a great place to start our team because it's right in the middle of the Dakotas and the region, so we can pull from both North, South Dakota, and we can basically have two states with one team. And the region has really been growing in the past years, both economically and population-wise. So we think that it's time where we can start a football team there. Legally, we're going to have to follow all the state, national, and local laws, which are going to include things like building codes, making sure the stadium isn't too big, making sure it's not an eyesore in the community, making sure it's not harmful, spewing out harmful chemicals or really anything like that. We also need to make sure it's ADA compliant so that disabled people have ramps, walkways, and special seating, elevators, and everything, that it's up to snuff on that. And then otherwise we need to make sure we've got plenty of exits and plenty of security checks so that we can not only be safe in the stadium but outside too, because attacks are an issue that stadiums do have to deal with. And going along with that, having a sound evacuation plan is also key because we need to just take the proper precautions in case something like that will happen. Governmental, pretty similar to the last one. We're going to have to deal with a lot of taxes with starting up a team with this much capital to begin with, but we think that the payout is going to be great enough in this region. And really, the NFL is one of the biggest legal monopolies in the U.S. and the world because there's really nothing else like it, and we feel like it's worth the investment to get in on that. And while all this stuff is expensive, we can compensate with ticket pricing, parking, monopolizing that, and adding merchandise sales. So from the business side of things, we're covering a huge geographic region all the way from Seattle to really North Dakota and maybe even into Minnesota a little bit. And we've got a large enthusiastic fan base as we see in the colleges and high schools. We can price ticket levels at varying price points to get the most out of our clientele. And we can, since land is so cheap around Fargo, we can make huge parking lots and monopolize the parking that way. And it's a great centrally located place to start the stadium.
Alright, so for revenue generation, it's obviously a relatively cheap startup. It's got, like Ed said, cheap land to start and build a stadium. And then local athletes and big corporations from around the Midwestern area would invest. Obviously, when it comes to an NFL team, the investors will be chomping at the bit to just pour money into it because there's a pretty high return on investment there. And again, monopolizing parking, so parking passes for any major sport are very expensive, so that brings in quite a bit of money, as well as ticket sales, as mentioned before as well, as like maybe cheaper tickets for students of local universities, all the way up to more expensive like suites, like you see in most stadiums. And then rivalry games, say with the Vikings or the Packers, or maybe even Seattle, if we want to stretch that far, would bring in tons of extra people and even probably get games on national television to get even more money. And then outside events such as concerts, other sports and stuff like that that you see at most major stadiums, like here at the Ralph and at the Fargo Dome. And again, merchandise. The people of North Dakota probably want to have their own like name on their chest, just to support the team that hopefully they grow up and love. And then appealing to students, so like students of the 4 major universities in both North and South Dakota, maybe offering cheaper tickets to get them to get to games and have an energetic fan base and hopefully make them be fans for life. And as well, stadium naming rights, which would bring in just a large sum of money from any company that wants to invest, which there should be a bunch of those.
Okay, so when it comes to marketing, this team will be one of the only pro sport teams in the area besides, well, unless you go over to Minneapolis, but that'll be a long ways away. This will be a dominant. It's not going to be like LA where there's tons of other sports competing with it. It will have its own area to do everything. College students will be the main people we want to shoot for because you want to get them involved and then they'll stay in the area and work here and then their kids will start following the teams after they have and then bring a lot of money. And so a way to do that would be to give cheaper tickets to the students or even free ones or have like free raffles. Just easy ways to get college students into the game to start off with. And children would also be one of our main targets. And that's because we're going to be a brand new we're going to be a brand new team, and so a lot of people will be stuck in their ways in the teams they already have. So we'll have to get new people in, and that's why we start with the college kids and the children, because they're going to be the ones in the area and they're going to be the ones that are going to bring in the most money, whether that be merchandising or just going to the games. Stadium sponsorships, of course, would bring in lots of money. A lot of people would jump at the opportunity just to be able to get their name back on the stadium. I know there's lots of places here in North Dakota and in South Dakota that would jump at that. And then another way we do it was we would connect with small local businesses to make it more of a community atmosphere instead of it being just about making money. We'd actually bring in the whole community for this. Then we're going to get into the SWAT. So the strengths, well, the obvious one is that the team will represent 2 states, and that's a huge deal because we will be a trailblazer in representation. What do I mean by that is usually most teams only represent cities, whereas this will actually represent not only 1 state, but 2. With both North Dakota and South Dakota alone, it'll total up to 1.6 million, and that's not even talking about the areas surrounding states that would also jump on the bandwagon. We'd have low expectations right away. They wouldn't expect a lot, so having a losing season would not be catastrophic for us. And we'd have a new multi-purpose stadium. And that's really helpful because if you can get other things into the stadium, it will end up making its money. And then low land prices would help for buying stadiums, parking lots, areas around. Weaknesses. We'd have to make the stadium multi-purpose if we were to make our money back. So that would mean we could do like, it's the same thing the Dallas Cowboys Stadium did, where they have monster truck riding, bull riding, horse riding, dirt bike competitions. The more things you can get into the stadium, the more it's going to return and the less you have a chance of flopping. Fan base would be a little weak because people would already have their own ideas for football players or for football teams, and so you'd have to work through that in the first 20 years probably, and then you'd get a stronger fan base. Even number of teams, that's a problem in the NFL because when you talk about divisions, there's 4 teams in each division. So if you were to add one, you would then have to throw this new team into a division and make a 5 one, which would kind of mess up a lot of stuff. And then there's the expansion fees. In 2001, the Texans were the last team to join the NFL, and that costed them somewhere around, I want to say, $700 million, and that was just to join the league. So that would have to be our first problem, would be raising money just to join the league. Opportunities, Super Bowl. If we get a big enough stadium, we can bring in the Super Bowl. And then revenue. Large fan base in the area. With NDSU and SDSU, the 2 big college football schools, they bring in 41,000 people alone. And that's beyond what you'd get for NFL players or NFL teams. Threats, the stadium flop would be the biggest issue. That's why you'd have to make it multi-purpose. And the Vikings, because the Vikings are our biggest threat right now, because they own a lot of the fan base that we would be trying to take, so that would be difficult. And then the initial investment, which I previously talked about, was that being the expansion fees and having to actually get the money down for the stadium. And then the relocation of the team. If the team were to flop, then there's a chance that they would keep the team but move it out of the area and somewhere where they think it would flourish. So that would be a problem, especially for people around here when we put in so much money and we build this new stadium, and then they do horrible and we can't get enough people in the stadium, and then we end up having to move the team, and then that would just be awful for everyone. I think that's it.
All right.